More now on that boat that capsized just off Bali with 5 Australians on board and 2 people died. This is the 4th serious boat accident off Bali this year. 3 of them have been deadly. Australians account for more than a quarter of the tourists in Bali, with more than 1 million Australians visiting every year. So it's hugely popular with Australians. Joining us now from Melbourne is travel journalist, commentator and host of the World Awaits travel podcast, Belinda Jackson. Belinda Jackson, welcome. So what's been happening in recent years with the number of trips on boats from places on Bali to surrounding islands and back?
Well, as you've said, Australians really love Bali, and we've loved it even harder after COVID. I mean, last year, more than 1.5 million Australians visited Bali. And as we explore it, we're going further afield. So places like Nusa Penida have become really popular because, we want to explore more of the islands. But also it's also become a social media sensation for its beautiful beaches. So, when you see that, more people are lured to going to places such as this island and the Gili Islands, which are in between Bali and Lombok. So really, we are exploring further past the traditional areas of Kuta and that part of Bali. So, with that comes more sea, there's a lot more boats running out to those areas. There's, you can do day trips, you can stay on the islands now that you never used to be able to do, and you're seeing a growth in villas and resorts being built on those islands. So we're being lured out to the islands, and the problem is that the infrastructure hasn't kept up with it. Yeah,
and so just how treacherous can the waters and the weather around there be?
Well, this is actually a really deep ocean channel that runs between Bali and Lombok. And, there are two, there's the rainy season and the dry season. And received wisdom says that the drier months are better. But there are months such as around July, which, July, August that we're seeing now, where you have more ocean swells happening and higher winds as well. So, but I would take that with a grain of salt because, with the change in global weather patterns as well, then what was already a fairly treacherous crossing has become even less predictable.
So what's the standard of regulation of tourism operators there?
Well, there are regulators, there are regulations for the boats. Whether those regulations are being followed is another thing. So you'll find, there are a couple of tiers of transport particularly between Bali and the islands to Lombok. So there are public ferries, and then there are ferries that are geared more at the tourist market, and they vary in terms of their size, in terms of their capacity. But the question is, yes, there are regulations. Are they being followed? And then again, are those regulations being policed as well? So it really is a multi-tiered failure, I believe.
So as we've said, so many Australians go there. How can tourists make the best decision about which company to go with? And should they be looking at weather forecasts themselves and making a call on whether or not to go on a particular day?
I think watching the weather, of course, makes a lot of sense, but also using your common sense when you're looking at a boat. If you're in a boat, this boat had 80 people in it, and you have to make a common sense call, really. But then you can ask as well, is there a life jacket for every person on that boat? If there's not, don't get on the boat. If there's, you can do your own due diligence and having a look at social media sites. There are a lot of platforms on social media where people are discussing different boats and their, the fact that they seem to be run in a safe manner, that they have got things like safety briefings, that the captain actually owns, whether the captain owns the boat or they're hiring the boat, which often can be an indication that, they're just doing runs to make the money for it. Choosing a cheaper boat isn't necessarily always the way to go if you're going to save a few dollars over, having such an incident where the boat isn't set up for poor weather as well. So I think that travellers really have to make those decisions. They have to use common sense. They can also use social media platforms, and they can ask the questions as well. Have you, if you go through those security requests, do you have insurance? Does your captain have a license? Those are really basic questions that should be able to be asked by the people that are selling the tickets for the boat. I mean, whether you're buying from a third party, I would suggest, buying direct from the company itself and putting those questions to the boat. And ultimately, when you're standing at the port, you need to make that call. Does it feel right? And if it doesn't feel right, don't get on the boat.
And you mentioned there are a couple of tiers of operators there. There are public services and others geared more towards the tourists. What's the reputation of those public boats?
Well, the public boats run cheaply. I mean, there's three main areas that the boats run from on the eastern side of Bali, from down Banoa Harbour, down near Nusa Dua, and then further up from Sanur, where this tragic boat accident happened, and then up in Padang Bai. Look, it is an island nation, and locals have to travel on those ferries that might not have the same safety requirements that some of the larger boats have got. But at the end of the day, Bali has unfortunately this reputation for not having marine safety. So I think it is a case of tourists really deciding whether they've made the right decision by and doing their due diligence on the boat that they're travelling on.
Yep, and Belinda, if you're over there and hearing what we've heard over the last couple of years with the number of incidents, would you still be going on boats for tours, or you just kind of exercise your judgment?
I think exercise your judgment. I think if you're going between Bali and Lombok, it is really cheap to fly between the two, and I would consider that as an alternative. And then also taking a boat, if you're going to the Gillies, taking boats from Lombok across to the Gillies, it's a much shorter crossing and much less treacherous as well. But yeah, ultimately, you've got to look at those boats if you don't have a life jacket, and if the boat is well crammed to capacity and you can't walk, the fact that there are bags everywhere and you can't walk down the main areas of the boat, then that isn't a boat that you should be going on.
Okay, Belinda Jackson, thanks for talking to us from Melbourne.
Thanks, Joe.